Well, my friends, we have arrived at the last video in my Best of Skincare 2019 series. Today we're going to tackle the best skincare tips. And I don't mean how much you added to the bill of your last facial. I'm going to give you the best advice that I can give you in this video. Not a skincare 101 style, not a skincare basics, those videos exist, but rather the tips that I've accumulated over 3 years of doing all these skincare trials. And I know some of you are new, so if you're sitting there wondering, who is this girl anyway? Well, who is anybody? I'm basically just somebody who had bad skin in my 20s. My teens were great, but in my 20s, boy, did hormonal acne ever affect my life. So I decided that I was going to take a scientific approach to finding the best brands out there. I do come from the sciences. So I, set up this system that was very much based on the scientific method, kind of how to blind myself in doing this, reading lots of primary literature, and I shared it on YouTube for, at the time, my 200 subscribers. Today, 3 years later, we've grown a substantial bit, and I've learned a lot. And again, that's what I want to share with you. Not the traditional tips, but tips that I think you may not have heard elsewhere. My number one tip to you is to consider allergy. I do not think we talk about this anywhere near enough, but the fact is, allergy is a giant factor in how other people perceive skincare. If you don't consider and understand allergy, you may look up a product on the Sephora website, you see that it has a 3-4 star rating, and you think, okay, I gotta read these reviews. So you look at the 5-star reviews and people are saying, best skincare product I've ever tried in my life, absolutely changed my skin. Then you see the 1-star reviews saying, this is the worst thing ever. I don't know how anybody likes this. The second I put it on my skin, I started to see these little tiny bumps. It's just a horrible product. How could they possibly release this? And you could be sitting there saying, well, who's telling the truth? Is it really this life-changing product, or is it the worst thing in the entire world? What's the truth here? On the other hand, if you consider allergy, then you will know exactly what to look for. You will see that 1-star review. You will see that that person is describing the signs of allergy. You will go back to that ingredients list and you will find right there in the ingredients list an allergen, and you will understand. You will say, so this person had an allergic reaction. It made the whole product unusable for them, whereas the people who did not have that allergy loved it. And then building upon that, once you understand your own skin, you could recognize, oh, I have an allergy to these specific ingredients. I must always avoid them, and as long as they're not there, I'll have a good experience with the product. And this very much relates back to you, because you have to understand what you have allergies to. Do not be surprised if you have a very, very tough skin type, which I do, but you still have a couple of allergies. I think this is very common. Again, my skin is tough. I can use 30% AHA, but I cannot use certain chemical sunscreens, and I cannot use bergamot. In terms of skincare tips that are game-changing, I have to put this one first because it's so important. Again, what one person has an allergy to, other people may not. And I said this years ago, I think that the vast majority of products that hit the market have already been through enough testing for them to make it to the shelves, for the brands to feel that it's a good product. But that does not mean that everybody is going to have a good experience. And once you get into allergies, and especially with skincare, where products are made to be absorbed into your skin, you can have an allergic reaction and it'll ruin things for you. Number 2 on my list is don't approach skincare with the idea of what you don't want. Approach skincare with the idea of what you do want in your product. So I was really thinking about this after watching a rather large YouTuber here who I've watched for years. I really do like her. But she talks about skincare rather often, and she was talking about it in this particular video. She pulled out a product that she was recommending, and before she even talked about the product, she gave this long list of what wasn't in it. No parabens, no phthalates. That's all great, but she actually never approached the topic of why we would want to buy it. So Great that it doesn't have those, but what does it have in it? I recognize that what I'm saying here is a little controversial, and I understand that some people are avoiding ingredients. But regardless, I think you should always ask yourself what's in a product. You know, again, like I said in my first point, most products that make it to the market are safety tested. And when we get into ingredients like preservatives, there's always going to be a hard limit as far as how much of that is going on your skin, and yet preservatives are always going to be there. They're required to be in any product that is sold that contains water. That's going to be pretty much all skincare. You got an exception in talking about oils, but pretty much everything else is gonna have water. So if this is important to you, you know, you really don't want to use parabens, etc., I respect that. But make sure you don't stop the conversation there. Ask yourself, what's in this product? What are its selling points? If its selling points are only what's not in it, then what is in it? Glycerin? Is it a $100 tube of glycerin? Number 3 ties into this very heavily, and that is to understand the 1% line. Now, I'm going to link to you guys another YouTuber, Kenna, here on YouTube, who did a great video explaining this, and lots of people have talked about shortcuts for finding this 1% line. I talk about it often. Phenoxyethanol is a preservative that cannot be in products at more than 1%, so when you see it in an ingredients list, you know that everything after it or even around it is going to be at 1% or less. The reason this is so important for you to understand is that there are a ton of products on the market that are making these intense claims. You know, oh, we have all of this flower extract in our product and it is a really good flower, you guys. Y'all are saying that this product is, and I quote, packed with this flower, but it's actually at less than 1%. You gotta remember that the whole skincare industry isn't regulated, so there's no rules on the phrase packed with. You see packed with, it could be 99% that product, it could be 0.05%. I think this can be a tricky topic because on one hand, if I tell you this, you know, you could be sitting there saying, oh my goodness, this means all these companies out here are lying. But if you also dig a little deeper, you know, there's certain ingredients that you do not want at more than 1%. I think people might think, you know, oh, I want a 100% retinol. That sounds great. You don't. You don't want a 100% retinol. See, I understand that skincare can seem like a very overwhelming topic, but I would just say, you know, learn a little bit as you go. Pick up things here and there, and then you'll start to understand what ingredients are most effective for you, what percentages they should be at. Again, this is why I do really love the brand The Ordinary. That helps you to learn this even faster when you're sitting there using products that are labeled 5 and 10%. You understand what that percentage does on your skin. There really is a lot of learning involved, but you know, I guess what I'm saying is I believe in you. You can do it. Number 4, I do have to put this in this video, even though this one you've heard elsewhere, that is to be consistent and be patient. This is very important. You know, I still, to this day, I do see reviews that say I used the product 3 days and I saw no change. Yeah, that's because you used the product for 3 days. When you're talking about skincare, you're talking about these ingredients that are acting at a deeper level than just the surface. You know, if you put makeup on, it makes an instant change. But skincare, you're actually asking your skin to do all these complicated processes to make these changes. It typically isn't going to happen overnight. For the record, there are some ingredients that seem to make almost immediate changes, but I think that consistency really is going to be key. You know, if you have dry skin, you can't just put moisturizer on one day and expect to live the rest of your life with not dry skin. There's a lot of consistency involved. There's a lot of patience involved. And then related to this, have reasonable goals and respect the limits of skincare. You know, occasionally I have people in my comments who say things like, what can I do to get rid of wrinkles? Sometimes there's not a topical product that will really make the changes that you're asking for. Sometimes it is a very fair conversation to have that, you know, there's cosmetic procedures that exist that do cost a lot more money than a Neutrogena cream, but they'll give you what you're looking for, and rather than shell out $20 100 times, sometimes that's a better option. But you guys know me, you know I'm not just gonna say that and not also comment on the impact of social media. You know, I was thinking about this when taking some photos for my thumbnails. So I used to use an Android. Oh, this is gonna sound so bougie, bear with me. I don't really understand why we in this household switched to iPhone, but we did. Something about privacy, I think. Ask my manager. But I loved Android. I loved Android for a long time. I loved my Google Pixel? Is it Pixel? So when we switched over to iPhone, I was like, all right, I'll give this a try. I guess the rest of the world loves iPhone. I started taking my photos on it, and I liked the photos. I liked the way that it takes photos of a bigger screen, too. You know, it's a benefit. But then one day I was looking at my photos, and I realized, I was like, oh, photos of my face, and I realized I look way prettier on every photo that I take on the iPhone. So I did a little pinch to zoom thing in on my forehead, and I was like, iPhone, you are face tuning me without my permission. I have fine lines on my forehead because literally everybody does, except for when I take a photo on my iPhone, they disappear. So we have some rather unrealistic goals that are not just being set for us when we scroll Instagram, when we see all these people who downloaded apps that change their face and change their body structure. Anyway, we're also seeing it when we take photos. Our own photos are face-tuned, so no wonder we have these unrealistic expectations. When I go and look in the bathroom mirror at night, I have forehead lines again, even though an hour ago I took a photo that didn't. So I think it's so important to have this conversation and realize that human skin is human skin, and that's a-okay. You do not have to look like people on Instagram. You do not need to look like people on the cover of magazines if you're old school. And I'm going to be honest with you, and dare I say it, I genuinely think that, there's a certain type of beauty to be seen in people that do have a maturity to their skin, a face that shows that they've lived an expressive life. I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing, but we're kind of sold the idea that it is. Basically what I'm saying here is whether you decide to have cosmetic procedures or whether you decide not to, that's okay. Your skin is your skin, and whatever makes you happy is what you should do. And whatever is within your financial budget, that's really important too. My next two tips kind of go together as the last two did, so I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say, be careful and aware of which skincare sect you are choosing to join. I seem to be getting rather personal on my channel lately in spite of years and years of me not being personal, so we're gonna talk about my odd little life story for a moment. So, I actually never finished high school, true story. I went to junior college instead because, God, I did not fit into high school at all. So I got my AA, and then I went and got my first bachelor's degree in religion. By the time I graduated, I kind of realized, oh, I don't actually want to be a priest. Why did I do this? Why did I spend 4 years studying all of the world's religions when I don't actually want to work in anything related to religion? I'm ultimately not mad that I did this because it truly was an interesting experience. I see the world differently as a result of spending so much time studying religion. I recognize religious behaviors in people, and to be honest with you, I see it a lot in the skincare communities. There are some mindsets in certain communities that are not necessarily grounded in science, and yet they are very perpetuated by the community. One that I can think of off the top of my head is the Microtears thing. This idea that if any kind of physical scrub touches your skin, you are actually ripping your skin apart at some cellular level. Show me the data. There isn't research into this, but it's very much a mindset. It's not that different from this is the universal truth. This is the afterlife. This is Microtears. Skincare is this very interesting intersection between science and opinion. You can't have skincare without science. It has to be rooted in actual research and what actually makes a difference on the skin. But at the same time, when a product is released two very differing opinions, you know, one person saying best product ever, another person saying absolutely hate it. Neither one of those are wrong. But again, I think you have to be very careful here because a lot of ideas within the skincare communities are presented as highly factual. And when you actually go and do the deeper digging, you find out that it's not actually based on science. It's kind of advertised within that community as based on science, and instead, it is based on opinion. And thus, my final tip in this video, I think it is so important for you as the consumer, as the person buying products, to always, always, always ask yourself, what is the slant of the advice that I'm receiving? Love you to death, Beautypedia. Love you absolutely to bits. But Beautypedia has a slant. They are always going to give Paula's Choice products 5 stars. And hey, that is wonderful if Paula's Choice is your favorite brand, if the products work wonderfully for you, that is great. But you know, just because they rate a product low, especially because they rate oils with one ingredient rather low, and it may frustrate me, but you know, again, you have to ask yourself, what is the slant here? What is the ultimate purpose of what they're trying to accomplish? Another example for you guys. So we were at Ulta not too long ago. I was trying to find a primer for Aura, and I steered her over to the Pure primers because I thought that one of those would be a good option for her. So we're standing there looking at the selection of Pure primers, and this guy comes up and he's like, oh, Pure makes the absolute best primers. And I'm there and I'm like, yeah, I like some of them. I think this one is probably going to be the best choice for her as opposed to this one. That one sits a little weird on the skin. And he just starts saying, oh, no, they're all wonderful. My little feelers were going off. I was like, you seem very invested in this. So I kind of casually approached the topic of, what do you do? I'm a rep for Pure Cosmetics. Ding, ding, ding. Knew it. Called it, knew it. But you guys, I've done a lot of things in my life. I've been a rep. So I knew what I was looking for. But does everybody know that somebody randomly coming up to you saying, this is the best brand, might be selling that brand? You know, it's like Lennon said. You look for the person who will benefit the most. You know what I'm trying to say. I am the walrus. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video and this series and found it helpful. I will have a link below to the rest of the videos in this series. Feel free to leave your best skincare tips in the comments. What is something that you wish you knew when you first started using skincare that you know now? Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.